Good morning, Center for Effective Living Community. Valerie Ling, clinical psychologist, director, founder for the Center for Effective Living, coming live to you this morning. I've started my morning in a way that is, I'm hoping to be fairly typical, which is to actually start it in a more reflective moment. I have a value of having a spiritual life that is maintained, and most mornings I try to actually start that with a dose of reflection and a devotion time. And that devotion time actually prompted me to think about a concept that many years ago I came across and thought to myself, well, that's actually quite logical. And that is the concept of the principle of servant leadership. So our Monday segment is on dynamics, and it's looking either at something about your own self-awareness or in relating to others. So I thought I would just hop online and talk about this concept of servant leadership. Servant leadership, I can't remember exactly how many years ago, but it was pretty big. If you know and you're online, or if you watch this, maybe you can help me remember when this came out. Lots of books written in the leadership circles at that time about servant leadership. And I remember being struck at that time to think, oh, this makes a lot of sense. In my own personal and professional life, in terms of the work that I do as a psychologist, I hold in high value to be a servant to my clients and to our community. But servant leadership, meaning that in the various roles of leadership that I hold, also embodying the role of the servant. For me, this is a useful concept to tinker around with, because whether you're an employer or a business founder, a parent, a teacher, wherever you have been put into a position where you are giving some form of leadership and there are people following you, to think about servant leadership. So the servant leader, basically the power pyramid is tipped upside down. The servant leader is there to serve their team. The servant leader has a vision, has a direction, because that is also in service to their team. They need to think about where the organization and the team is going. They need to proactively think about how they are going to get there, what obstacles there might be, and what resources are needed. However, the process for coming up with the problem solving, for coming up with how the tasks are to be allocated, what tasks need to come up so that the vision and the direction keeps going, is done as a servant leader. And that is by asking the fundamental question as a leader: this is where we are going. How do I help you get there? What do you need? This is where we're going. I'm sensing some resistance. Resistance is not futile in this case. I'm sensing some resistance. I'd like to understand that. Where aren't we connecting on this? Servant leadership came up for me this week, even in my home, because this week it was my job to reorganize the list of chores for our family. And I put up the chores and I was met with some resistance. Not necessarily for the chores themselves, but for a perception that it was grossly unfair. Interestingly enough, I hadn't even picked it up, because as I did it, I have a formula and I make sure that whatever jobs for the week needed to get done got done, and that people were allocated accordingly, just into a box. However, hi Daniel, what I didn't factor was the troops' perception of that list, even though I had all the best intentions. The troops' perception of the list, that when they actually counted up the names, that there was not an equal number of names in each week. Also, it didn't take into account their strengths and perhaps even some of the practical limitations they had in terms of carrying out the chores. Now, that was a case where I thought, yeah, servant leadership is required here. I need to pull back and understand that resistance and say, why don't we talk about this? Let's give it a go. Let's try this out for a month. You might think a month is long, but our chores are kind of mapped onto a monthly basis. Let's try it out for a month, and then I'm eager to hear what you think. feedback. Let's figure it out together. Let's work on it to see if it will work. Servant leadership is such a powerful concept because basically it doesn't minimize direction and vision by diluting the leader's influence and control to get things done. In fact, it helps the leader stay on course by maximizing motivation, participation, buy-in, and collaboration by the team. So I'll leave you with that little thought this morning because I'm actually rethinking quite a lot of the things that I'm doing, not just in my personal life and my professional life. Those days when I'm not seeing my clients in clinic, those days are actually spent as being the director of a group practice and ensuring that I ask that same question: what do you need of me? Here's where we're going. What do you need? What's in your way? How can I help you? Have a great day.